Okay, so in the last couple of days, we've had a lot of the UK Muslims in a bit of a frenzy with discovering somebody who had practically duped people into a Ponzi scheme. And a supposed confession video came out to explain how that actually happened. A lot is made out about this, but the question arises, how did this actually come to fruition? And what is it that we can do to prevent ourselves from this kind of thing happening to us? We're going to be discussing all this and more straight after this. Okay, welcome back to another episode of Magical Musings. Tonight we have a couple of guests with us as well. So we have Mr. Amir Niazi. Brother Amir Niazi is a fraud and scam investigator. I have to get that right because he does work for an organization who we can't mention, but he does know his stuff in this kind of department. And we have Brother Adam Khan, who is also an entrepreneur. He has lots of strings to his bow, has also attended events where these kind of schemes or projects have been discussed or pitched. So it'll be good to get that insight. And obviously, Brother Ibrahim Barry, who's my co-host on here, who's also a businessman. So this is going to be an interesting discussion. Now, boys, what did you make of what is being shown on social media? I'm going to start with Adam because obviously, Adam, you've been following the events quite closely, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Go on.
Where do I begin? Where do I begin? Do you have a specific question that you'd like me to answer?
Okay, so when you heard this news that Aaqib Ahmed, the lead guy for Muslim Pioneer, had been caught in the act and he was starting to post things about his programs not going to be completed with his mentees or coachees from the program, what went through your mind? What were you thinking?
I would have said it. I mean, see, it did surprise me. It didn't surprise me. It surprised me because for some reason, although the numbers didn't stack up, none of it stacked up, right? Because if anything seems too easy, right? If it sounds untrue, it's probably not true.
Yeah, it
Right?
sounds too good to be true. It
Yeah,
usually is.
it's good to be true. Like you're gonna put in £10,000, and you're gonna get what was it, 10%, 20% back every month, forever. Because and then when I inquired about it, he sent me a PDF and he said what we're doing is, we are selling our program, and it costs us this much in ad spend. He didn't give me an exact number. He said it costs us so much in ad spend, and we make sales. So if we put in £1,000, we make £10,000 worth of sales. So we have £9,000 profit, and then we give like 50% of that back. But then also the person that signed up, we make them refer as well. Immediately, that was a bit of an issue for me because I've seen
Pyramid scheme.
Yeah, I've seen somebody else do this a few years ago, and he's not come out in the open. Maybe I can mention his name. He's called Uthman, right? A few years ago in the YouTube video, he did something similar. It was essentially, I'm going to sell you this program. It costs you £4,000 or £5,000, and essentially you sell the program on, and then they sell the program. So it's a pyramid scheme. So that didn't sit well with me. But generally with Akib's character, I found him. He's always been like kind of really polite and courteous, and not the crafty, sly type. But the numbers didn't add up because a few other people asked me about this, and we sat there and we did the numbers, and we thought he'd have to be making like hundreds of sales a day. And I've tried doing Facebook ads with various agencies, and myself, and it is just not that easy. And I said to him as well, it's very, very unpredictable. How are you making the numbers work? And he said to me, "Oh, I've been doing it for so many years. I've got it down to a T." I thought maybe like 1% chance. So I give him that 1% benefit of the doubt, but I didn't invest in it.
Right. Okay. Amir, what about you?
Yeah, so look, I don't know too much of the ins and outs of what the proposals were on the table. But when you look at scams such as this, there's various facets involved. And Brother Government hit the nail on the head. It's too good to be true. It usually is.
Mm.
The problem we face is that not everyone is savvy in business or in investments or in finance to be able to make those decisions. So you're having people who are relying on information being provided by the advisors, and then they use that as a basis to make their choices. Now, whether those choices would turn out to be good or not, is always a risk. You see,
Mm.
you hear ads on TV, your investment may go up as well as down. I mean, that's the truest thing that they say in those adverts. So it's always good with hindsight, but in essence, when that investment is made, a lot of those people are making those investments in good faith. They are making those investments thinking that, yeah, the returns seem logical. Not always, but at the same time, they don't have that financial background or that business acumen to be able to make those choices. And in essence, you are relying on those advisors who claim to be FCA regulated or who are the proposers of the investment to show you the way really. I think you know a lot of people turn around to scams like this and say, "How do I know? I'm not that stupid. How will I fall for that?" But unfortunately, it just takes the wrong time or the right time, the wrong moment, and people get duped.
Yeah, you mentioned something key there. You mentioned people invest in good faith. And faith happens to be a tool in terms of religiosity. I can't even say the word properly anymore. And I was saying that to Barry earlier. It happens to be a tool which was used quite heavily in marketing these products. There were so many. I'm connected with Aaqib on Facebook. I've never had any meaningful discussions with him. I had one or two interactions related to something that he had a group. He wanted somebody to take over it. And he asked me how many emails I had on my email list. And I was wondering, well, if you're looking at somebody to take over a group for you, why would you want email? Want to know how many people I have on my email list? So it was a bit odd for me. But other than that, I'd never had any interactions with him directly. I've seen his posts. Now his posts were such a mixed bag because as Adam said, he came across like a nice guy. I remember not too long ago there was a post he put up about sponsoring somebody's Umrah trip, that he'll pay for somebody to go to Umrah or Hajj. I can't remember which one it was. I don't know whether that materialized or not. But a lot of question marks came for me, having seen pyramid schemes and these kinds of schemes where people are made to introduce other people into the mix in order to grow the business and make more money. For me, that was something that was a bit of a red flag. But here's the thing: from what I've seen, he has done some credible work in the past, and so we've got a question here from Abu Musa. What the early red flags of Ponzi schemes? We'll answer that question shortly, Abu Musab. So, from what I had seen, or from my understanding, I don't know, Barry, if you've seen him from before, that initially there was a lot of work that he was promoting, just like Adam said, using things like Facebook ads. But we know that Facebook ads has changed throughout the years and how potent what it used to be into what it is now. And the algorithms on social media change consistently. Maybe this could be a reason also. I'm just assuming here why some of the stuff that he was doing in the past was no longer working or working as effectively today. So Barry, did you ever come across Aaqib before in the past, and what did you make of it?
I think for me, my guy, is that even 30 years ago, there was a guy from our village back home. He started these pyramid schemes off, and he made so much money and took people's money. It was unbelievable. And I do think when I was listening to this that every time people get sucked in by this, and I'm sure it was an event, Palestine event in Birmingham. We had a lot of the speakers there. Mahmoud Hijab was there, other people, and he sponsored it. I'm sure it was Aaqib, but it was someone promoting these pyramid schemes. And I just thought, you know what? You come to a Palestine event, it just doesn't sit right promoting a pyramid scheme or a business. I think that's where sometimes ethically you got to look at these things. I had a call on Friday from a brother abroad. You know, these WhatsApp scammers from Nigeria. And he said, Assalamu alaikum, brother. Alhamdulillah, subhanallah. How are you, mashallah? I said, listen, brother. I said, if you want my WhatsApp details and you want to scam me, please have some fear of Allah. Don't say, Assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillah, mashallah. You know, come on. You know, if you know you're out to scam someone, then at least have some fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Back in my days, even if you had the guys who were doing haram or doing scams, you had the fear that, look, you know, you wouldn't use these Islamic connotations, let alone use the Islamic avenues. I'm not trying to judge this brother. Allahu alam, Allah will judge him, that what his intentions were. Whether, you know, a lot of guys, what they do, they are sincere when they start off, but then they compromise on their principles when they realize that, you know what, actually, this is too much. So when it comes to either losing a lot of money or compromising on your principles, sadly, your principles go out the window then. But I generally feel that when these kind of things, we've got to be careful. And there's a lot of this now, similar to the guys who are having affairs for 10 years and one day they'll say, we'll marry you. That, you know, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed this, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, a lot of times we justify Islamically and use the Islamic platform, sadly, for our own personal benefit. So for me, that didn't sit right. Because even Islam channel, because a lot of guys, like Brother Adam was mentioned, would think twice to say, okay, we've heard all this before. Actually, when Islam channel are promoting, you think, hold on a minute, there's got to be some credibility here. I think that's where I think we've got to be careful as well. When we're doing these kind of, or we've got responsibility Islamically, do we really mix some of these things in? Even like a lot of social media now, a lot of brothers, they want to start certain things. And I think this is where the wider discussion is important, that this whole thing of, you know, one thing they were advertising was that, last comment, and then we can move on, that is, you know, we'll share our profits while we do all the heavy lifting. In reality, is that really true? You know, all of us, I see some of the brothers, well, all four of us, we've not got much hair on our heads. We've got life experience, we've got business experience, you know, and this is where I really would, you know, like to open this wider, that, you know, name one thing in life that you are going to achieve things that you don't have to do the heavy lifting. It doesn't make sense. You know, why is your son, Majid, why is he working at stacking shelves in the local grocery and he's got another job in the evening? What are you trying to teach him? And that's, for me, the principle that if you want to make money, this is a good thing. You're a man, you take the responsibility, but you're going to have to roll your sleeves up and work hard. And this whole thing about getting rich quick or die trying, that's the culture we live in, isn't it? You get rich quick, it doesn't work. So for me, sorry, that's my view on it anyway.
No, it's obviously poignant in what we're discussing right now. I think myself and Amr were discussing this earlier today, in terms of what we saw as part of this confession video, supposed confession video. If something didn't sit right, I actually reached out to Aaqib yesterday. I asked him to come on and have a chat and to clarify certain things, because I don't know, for me, I when I was watching that video, it was, something didn't sit right. It was almost as though, I mean, he says in, I don't know if you read the 5 Pillars article about this. He felt he was threatened or intimidated or something like that, or pressured or something like that into saying certain things. I'm not, you know, dissolving him or absolving him of what he's done as being wrong, but it's hard for me to believe that one man on his own, with a team around him, is taking the flak. And it almost came across as though other people did know, but that video was made to absolve them of their wrongdoings or any involvement in that way. And that's why I would rather have had him to clarify certain things. Because look, let's say you make 70 excuses for your brother, and you can only take that so far when, if there's a confession in black and white. But obviously we didn't have the whole kind of picture behind it. But what it's like Amir says, you know, what will happen will happen. That'll be interesting because there's a confession video, and how this actually plays out. Because most people, Amir, you were saying a lot of people who are scammers, they end up fleeing to Dubai and nothing comes of it.
Yeah, look, so allow him why somebody decides to go rogue. You know, I agree as well. that, I don't believe that all of these guys start off with the intention to scam people. I'm sure some do, but I don't think they all do. But there comes a point where that fear of Allah goes, or that greed takes over, or whatever that psyche is, I don't know. And they go down that route of the scam, and then it just gets out of control and out of control and out of control. And yeah, from what I've seen, a lot of these guys you don't get hold of them. They will move to other countries. They'll move to particular countries, especially the Middle East, where you have no extradition treaties. So that you can do what you want. You can go and find them. You can try legal means. It's difficult to get hold of them. Differently here, I said you've got a confession, albeit in that video. I don't know how admissible that is will be later on, but yeah, I agree with you. Something didn't sit right with me watching those videos. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds, because you've potentially got an admission, you potentially got a criminal case, you're going to have civil cases, you're going to have ombudsman cases, bank cases, all stuff. But with the person being here in the UK, that makes the dynamic very different. So I don't know what happens.
What's the likelihood? You mentioned something that there is a course for recompense of some kind. There's a way of getting back what you lost. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I've been reading a lot of posts in the last 2 days, and there's a lot of misinformation out there of what you can and can't do. So very basically, if you've made the payments in the UK using a UK bank account, then it doesn't matter if they are registered companies or the guy was FCA registered or not. In essence, you have protection from the banks in our legal system here. So your first port of call is your bank. You go to your bank and you make an official. Well, you tell them, you let them know what's happened. You say, look, I believe I've been victim of a scam, and here's the scenario, and there's the any evidence you can put forward. Banks will carry out their investigation. But as I said, there's legislations in place when you're making these payments, especially large payments. There's an onus on the banks to pick up some of these large payments because of scams. So exactly why this legislation is in place, and to try and pick up these payments, to try and stop the scam from happening, to try and question consumers as to what they're doing. And remember, the banks are the ones with the financial knowledge. The banks are the ones with the trained staff. So those questions should be apt to the point where that they should be triggering further questions for the bank to saying, hang on, he's just told me he's transferring £20,000 to a platform in Switzerland called, I don't know, Cyborg. I've got to look into this. I can check the FCA register. I know what the FCA register is. Consumer might not do that. So there's a process there. A lot of the times the banks will say, oh, you didn't do due diligence. It's your fault. We're not taking any responsibility. And they'll stop it there. That's when the ombudsman kicks in. Now, the ombudsman are an independent organization. They will look at the scam itself. They will first see whether it's more than likely if it was a scam. Now, in certain scams like this one, you'll have probably more information than others. And then they will apply the letter of the law to a higher bar, I think. And I can tell you specifically, a lot of scam cases are upheld with the ombudsman, and consumers do get their money back. Now, this is not punishing the scammer in any way in that sense, because this is not a legal process through a court or through a criminal conviction or civil conviction. This is the ombudsman taking an independent analysis that the banks haven't done their jobs. And you'll be surprised as to how many banks don't do their job properly. So there is a process. There are caveats involved. You will be asked questions, and sometimes you're asked difficult questions. But you'd be open and upfront, you'd be honest, and let the legal process take its course, because it's there to protect those consumers. In fact, the legislation has just changed recently. It's got even more robust. But for the purpose of these payments, that it is in place, and people should be going down those routes. And that's I think the correct route to follow as well. That has been put there by the government for consumers who have been victim of scams. And these are for payments that are made by bank transfers. Card payments have slightly different rules and regulations, but your bank transfers, how usually people take payments now, it's quite common. It's not a big deal. You ask to transfer money, whether it's to a Revolut account or a Monzo account or to a standard high street bank account, doesn't matter. As long as it's a UK bank transfer, there's legislation in place for you.
So that doesn't apply to cash or crypto and stuff?
I'm sorry, cash. I'm afraid. You know, unfortunately, it's gone. You know, you can't. You're never going to be able to get the cash back.
You're not
That's
even going to declare that you've been robbed if you didn't.
and crypto is another one. Crypto, again, it's not regulated by the FCA, so therefore, you know, that's for me. That's the first. The crypto conversation is a whole independent, different podcast. But
Well, we should have that someday then.
yeah, I think that's that will be a long one. But you know, even if you put the halal haram, all that to one side, it's not regulated by the FCA, right? So that advice, that investment is not regulated by the FCA. So if you made a payment in crypto, again, you probably lost it. However, even if you made it to crypto, there will be a payment from a UK bank account, most likely at some point where funds are transferring over to crypto. So, you know, you purchased it somewhere, you've done it somewhere. So there might still be ways where you can claw it back. Um, but utilize, you know, consumers don't want to utilize these facilities, and it's free. So this is free. It doesn't cost the consumers anything. Um, you know, solicitors will charge a lot of the solicitors, bless them, they will take these cases and they will go to the ombudsman. They will put it in, you know, they'll put it in lovely documents and they'll take it to the ombudsman, and the ombudsman will do the case, and then the solicitors will charge a fee. But you know, this is free for you. This is free for the consumer. Complaining to your bank is free, and then taking it to the ombudsman is free. There's no charge, and the ombudsman is independent. There's no you know, there's no taking sides here. It doesn't work like that. You know, contrary to what you might read on social media and stuff like that, the reality is that they are independent. You know, and they are quite heavily regulated. They are I always say the whip of the FCA. So they have a lot of people sitting on top of their heads. So you know, it's not that easy for them to
Interesting. Adam, a question for you. Obviously, you've been to some of these events, you've been pitched some of these products in the past. Maybe we can tie that in with Abu Musal's question. What are the early red flags of Ponzi schemes? What is it that stood out for you, and why did you not invest? Because you have quite a few different things going on in your businesses, and you invest in different things, and you take an interest in a lot of different things from what I've seen. Why not something like this?
Before I
What are
answer
the red flags?
before I answer that, I'm going to, and I guess it's going to tie into what I'm going to say anyway. So
Okay.
I'm currently a victim of another elaborate investment scam, and
Wow.
not this one. And I posted about that in June or July, and I said there's a professional, sophisticated scammer amongst us, and it turns out now I'm in a WhatsApp group with victims. And it turns out, again, it's hundreds of thousands of pounds, not as big as this, but still a significant amount, where some people invested 100,000, 150,000. I personally invested 20,000. But that was far more elaborate than this. And one of the early red flags is you will see them sponsoring various events, right?
If I'm right, Adam, is this something to do with care homes as well?
Yes.
I think I know what you're on about.
And that was explained to me from a professional office, and this is how we do it. And I've been with these investment banks, and I've worked with these people in investment banks, and this, that, and the other. And he sat there and he explained the process to me, and I did more due diligence, and it made sense, right? So there's a number of things that these guys do, but like I said, that's far more elaborate. This one, I'm not sure how people fell for it, honestly. Apart from people who fall for scams like this really need to question yourself. And I've aged, and I've learned from experience, right? That, and somebody quoted this, and I saw this, and it said that they actually said this. This is what happens when you measure iman by titles and beard lengths, right? Many of us learned the hard way, and myself learned the hard way from multiple experiences. And he goes, and others are yet to learn this lesson, right? So anyone who fell for it needs to reflect and stop judging faith and trustworthiness from outward appearances, right? So one of the red flags is they don't have results. And they're using religion to sell whatever they're selling. But the biggest one is if there's no effort involved and you're getting more than 20%, some of the best investments, and I scour like everything to find the best investments, and that's why I even lost out to this other guy. He promised me 20% return. I thought 20% is good, right? And it was a scam. And the legitimate investments that I'm involved in, some of the best performing ones are about 13% return. when people are saying 20, 25, 30, 40%, right, unless it's something like a VC fund, which is high risk, right, it's, you forget it. There's something dodgy about that. And you just put your money in and you sit back and, you know, so the red flags is there's almost no effort involved. You just put the money in and you leave it. That's one of the biggest red flags. But like I said, the more elaborate ones now that I'm seeing, especially after the success of IFG, the Islamic Finance Group, they were quite successful. And after that, I saw loads of wealth managers start popping up everywhere, especially on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, they come across a lot more professional. None of this, you know, I saw a dream and Jibril came to me and he said, give me all your money. Nothing like that. These guys, they'll sponsor the local football team, they'll go to black tie events and they'll be the headline sponsor. You know, they'll show awards for this, then they'll give you their business map, the 12-month, and you know, this guy didn't even show this one that I'm involved in, he didn't show that. I've seen others where they've literally mapped out a 12-month business plan. It's so elaborate with all these, you know, Gantt charts and things like that. But when I put that post out, other people reached out to me and they said to me, is it this guy? Is it that guy? I'm like, wow, how many are there? Right? So there was another one that somebody said to me, and this is, he targeted all high net worth individuals, doctors, Muslim doctors, bankers, you know, high net worth individuals. And what he did was he was going to mosques where there were a lot of affluent, you know, attendees, right? And he was making large donations. Well, on paper he was making large donations, right? So charity events, mosque events, who can fund the minaret, you know, for 100,000, whoever puts their hands up first, I'll do it. And he's doing this a lot. So everyone thinks, wow, this guy's got a lot of money. What does he do? And it pulls out his flashy wealth manager. I'm an, you know, I'm an ex-investment banker. I can get you X amount returns, all these elaborate schemes. Far more believable. He's got a Porsche, you know, he's in a suit. Like I said, not this, you know, Jibril came to me and said, give me all your money, because that never sat well with me. Like that from day one, like, you know, Aaqib's like, he's a lovely brother despite of everything's going on. You know, he's been very polite and stuff, but open a halal business, like it never resonated with me.
There's a friend of mine who's always got a bone to pick about labeling businesses the halal way of doing things, or his reasons are somewhat different. But there's certainly a red flag when you're not expected to do much in return. So this example that you mentioned where you lost 20 grand, I don't know whether you got it back or not, but you were scammed out of it.
Yeah.
I think I know who you're referring to because I mentioned the industry that was being promoted at the time. There was a sister who was watching one of my podcasts, which was sponsored by this guy. He wanted to just put the sponsorship in. Oh, okay, fine, do it. And didn't pay me for it either. Eventually, didn't get the money for it. And then somebody saw that sponsorship, contacted him. He pitched to her. She contacted me saying, look, what do you think? I said, nothing to do with me. You just saw the ad. I'm not endorsing him. He's paid for an ad. Do your due diligence and make your own decision. It turned out he didn't give the money that he was promising after a certain period of time. She then told me, I contacted him, and because we're in the same network and I know all the people who he knows, I think he may have felt a little bit intimidated by that. And I said to him, look, get it sorted. Otherwise, you know, we're going to have to blow the top off it. And then he got her money back. So I think she was quite one of the rare ones to get that money back. Because since then I'd heard that he'd been arrested. And
so I think I know which it is. So I was saying that for the people who've lost money with Aaqib, like the brother was saying, if you go to your bank first, and then the ombudsman, and then there's another company out there called Refundee, they take 15%. They do a no win, no fee, and they take 15%.
Refundee do exactly what the solicitors do. So Refundee will take your case and take it to the ombudsman. They don't do any work. So I would be wary of some of these companies. If you haven't got the time to do it, I mean, it's actually the ombudsman won't ask you for much. They'll just ask you for the account of what happened and any documents. They'll get most of the information from the banks. So refundee, go to the ombudsman and just put your case
Present your
forward.
case. Essentially,
No,
present.
Oh wow.
there's actually no discussion with refundee when it goes to the ombudsman. So the only thing they do is they'll put the case forward. They'll put it, as I said, they present it very well, so it's very well written. But actually, what the ombudsman, the onus on the ombudsman actually is to contact the consumer. So the ombudsman will generally call the consumers and have a telephone conversation with them first, and they do this on purpose, and they do this to get that information firsthand, have a almost like an off the record chat to try and build that probe those questions to get the information out, and then they'll get things in writing, and then they'll get the data and information. A lot of the time, you can get that from the banks and stuff.
Yeah.
Emails can be sent forward. So again, I'd be wary of organisations who take money out of what you're owed, because all they do is they just do. You can do exactly the same thing. It's really easy.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. Someone like myself, I would still just because my time is very valuable, so I would much rather, even if it saves me
that's
a
fine.
few hours. Now, in terms of the recipient's bank as well, though, in this case, if this guy's getting millions of pounds, the recipient's his bank should have questioned, where's this money coming from? Why are you taking this money? And I think they've got a big case there. This is a large amount of money. I think
Adam, you're spot on. The recipient bank has a part to play in this. So when when your scam cases go to the ombudsman, part of that investigation is with the recipient bank. Now, the legislation with the recipient bank is not as robust, but there are still questions to be asked. So a lot of the times, if it's called the sending bank. So if your bank, the sending bank, if there's no joint with that, you can always go and look at that complaint against the receiving bank. The ombudsman will do that all in one. And you're exactly right, man. What you say, there's large sums of money being passed around. Someone's got to answer these questions or ask these questions. Someone's got to put their hands up and say, we're a financial institution. Mr. Malik here, no offense to any Maliks, but Mr. Malik here has never made a payment over £1,000 to anyone. All of a sudden, there's £10,000 going to another bank account. What's going on? They have to ask those questions. And again, a lot of the consumers out there are not, fortunate enough to be in good positions where they can financially afford to go to solicitors or people like that to help them, or they just haven't got that. They've got the time, they want to do it themselves. But that's why it's really important to get that information out to people so they know what they can do, what their rights are. Unfortunately, you're not punishing the scammer as such, but at this time you really want to get your money back as a consumer, and that's the focus.
Yeah, I do.
Sorry, go on.
I do feel like there's a strong case there. With the recipient bank, like I said, if he's received, he said what? I think last I heard it was 20 million. If 20 million is coming to a bank account, they've got to ask questions. They really have to ask questions. Where's this money coming from, and where is it going?
100%, man. The problem is when you see the back end systems, firstly, the legislation is not as robust. I think the key is that inshallah one day, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the UK government will make a more robust legislation with the receiving banks. I think it has to be done. That doesn't mean to say there isn't things already in place. But there's a lot of shenanigans that start happening after you've made a payment, and that's a lot of times what consumers can't see. Multiple bank accounts being used.
Sorry, that's our brother Zahur. He's a Malik as well. So he
had
to come back with a Malik comment.
Sorry, bro. I'll take that one back. I'll take that one. It just came to my head because I was actually speaking to one of my friends earlier on, and he's a Malik. The first
That's fine. You can use Maliks by all means.
I meant no offense there. But yeah,
I'm sure he won't take offense. I'm sure.
Going back to the faith thing, these Ponzi schemes are one of the oldest scams in the book. They've just
Before you go into that, Amir, here's a basic question for you, because some people will be looking at this and listening to this, they won't know what a Ponzi scheme actually is. Why do we refer to it as a Ponzi scheme? And what exactly is a Ponzi scheme? Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit first?
Very basically, please correct me if I'm wrong, but very basically, it's a scam where you have multiple investments, and one investment is used to pay another investor off. Now that investor thinks he's making a return that will encourage him to make more, to put either in more money to the investment, or they will share the details with someone else who will want to invest as well. And that scheme keeps on rolling until at one point the money dries up for whatever reason. So in a very basic terms, that's what a Ponzi scheme is. And I said it's one of the oldest scams in the book. It's been going on for donkey's years.
Why would people even do it if they can't get away with it?
You know what? I think that's the $1 million question. Why do people do it? You know,
I mean, how can you, unless you're going to flee the country, unless you're going to go onto some kind of private island where nobody knows where you are, how can you get away with it? Go on, Barry. You still there, Barry? You can't hear us.
I think another definition, an easy definition, it would be there's no product or service involved. The only money that's made is through money filtering it in from the bottom and the people getting rich at the top. But there's no product or service involved.
I've dealt with, I've seen 4 or 5 Ponzi schemes in the last few years. And honestly, I can't get into that psyche. I don't understand. I mean, maybe it's you become brave, you're confident, you know, you think you're not going to get caught. Why does anyone do any crime then, right? Maybe they have this exit plan where they think we can make the money and get away with it. I don't know.
Do you know, I think people do get away with it, Majid.
Can I comment there, Majid?
Go on, Barry. Been waiting patiently.
I think this goes back to that point, isn't it? That look, I think what's happening now is that the really good thing is that, alhamdulillah, a lot of Muslim professionals, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, he can't hear us.
Can you hear us, guys?
I don't think you can hear us for some reason, and our voices are coming through in delayed for some reason. I don't know. We could hear you though. Can you not? Okay. Might want to log back in. Sorry, Adam, you were going to say something. People do get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, they flee to Dubai, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Even if they've made like 50 million, they go to prison and they've managed to cash it all out and hide it under the mattress, right? If they come out of prison, they've got millions of pounds. You know, I think because years ago, do you remember the phone scams when there was like the fund cashback?
Yeah.
A local guy did this in 2008, 2007. He made millions, fled to Canada, went to Pakistan initially, and then from Pakistan he moved to Canada. He went to Pakistan, put his kids in private school. He scammed everyone. He got away with it. I think he's back now.
Right. Wow. Okay. Do you know? I watched this. One of my friends recorded a video clip earlier today, and he says, "Have you noticed that?" He was given an example of how one of his brothers was talking to somebody, and he's asking the guy. He came from Pakistan, this guy, and he goes, "What do you do for a living?" And he very sheepishly said, "I work for in a warehouse somewhere, right?" And he was very very embarrassed about it. And his brother, "Why are you embarrassed about it? It's halal income you're earning. You're putting your efforts in. You're doing something with your life. You're not sitting on your ass doing nothing." And he made the point that, have you noticed how when people are like scammers, people who are doing haram stuff like drugs blatantly, they walk around with their chests out and with confidence, and people, "Oh, Salam guy," even if, supposed Muslim, or maybe they are Muslim. We might have to do takfir on anybody, but these are people who are Muslims and openly selling drugs and stuff, and everybody's giving them a lot of respect. But somebody who's working in a halal way and goes out and earns their 9 to 5 doesn't get that same respect. And one of the ulama was saying that such people who do that kind of thing, we shouldn't be leading their janazah. You should get somebody else to lead their janazah, or one of their relatives to lead their janazah, just so they understand the gravity of the situation and to make a point and stuff. But to your point, Adam, it's a situation, isn't it, where we get to see people, like you say, who have scammed people, robbed people, made a lot of money, gone abroad, and enjoying the fruits of their labor, quote unquote, or inverted commas. This is crazy. But people who are hardworking, doing the 9 to 5 jobs, going out in the factory, or doing all sorts of wonderful things to earn a living for their families, they don't get the same respect and they don't get that kind of thing. But really, do they get away? We might get away with it, okay, here.
Yeah.
Eventually, they won't get away with it. Everybody's gonna have to account for what they've done in life in the hereafter. And it's different when it's like people who don't believe in the afterlife, the non-Muslims, or people who do believe in the afterlife. And one of the main things, I think me and Barry were talking about this at one stage, where being believers adds more ethics and morals in our business dealings as well. Not just our daily interaction with people, but our business dealings. We don't want to do wrong by anybody. We want to leave them in a better off position. We want to add value for them. Or we don't want to take their money knowing that we can't help them. That kind of thing.
In
Do
theory.
you find the same thing, Adam?
In theory.
Yeah, in theory. Yeah.
Sadly, my experiences don't reflect that. My experiences actually reflect that. When I've worked with non-Muslims, they tend to care about this more. And that's not to say for everyone. I mean, there's bad apples everywhere. But especially people who've been caught up on this hyped up marketing. There's this high. Look, there's nothing wrong with marketing, and we need to market. And like I made this post, and after I made this post, I said, because my profile is about fitness, I want to keep it about fitness. And I found in the past as well, when I start diluting my content, it affects my lead flow, right?
Yeah.
Because then people are like, oh, what's he about? Like, there's all this stuff. So I said, look, I want to continue. If you want to continue this discussion, I'm going to continue it in a private group dedicated to talking about business, money, finances, and stuff. Because the other thing that a lot of people ask me is, where do you invest your money? How do you invest it? So I'm very open. Like, I'm investing it here, and I've got I've got a lot of interest in stocks and shares as well. I find that really.
Your crypto must be doing well quite right now.
I've already just started in crypto a few months ago.
Well, you probably invested at the right time because it's on the horizon now, isn't it?
Yes. So, but I enjoy stocks and shares and stuff like that as a hobby. So people ask me, and I said, look, I don't want to put it on my main profile. I've got a group for that. So where I talk about money, business, finances, and what I've learned along the way. So I mentioned that, look, if you want to carry on this discussion, because I don't want to keep talking about this on my profile, comment group, and I'll add you to my group. So a few people have objected to that, and I've seen other people make posts about it saying he's already capitalizing on this tragedy. He's already trying to make money from this, and it's like, I'm not actually selling a course. Yeah, I'm being opportunist, right? But I said, look, I'm not selling a course or a program or anything. It's just to filter the discussion away from my profile.
Barry, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Apologize, guys. I think.
Sorry, we could hear you, but it sounded like you couldn't hear us, and our voices were like at least a couple of minutes delayed coming to you. So, technology, yeah. Go on.
I think, like I was saying, Majid, the good thing now is that, look, whichever industry you go in, I was looking for a fireplace earlier on. Mashallah, these brothers in Birmingham, they're leading in the fireplace industry. Really nice guys. I spoke to them for a while, and inshallah, I'm going to go see them. So whether you go to the hospital, you've got a lot of Muslim professionals who are doctors. Any business you go into, there seems to be, mashallah, a lot of Muslims who are growing in those industries. Now the thing is, like with anyone, as we've grown up with time, that you live in a capitalistic society, if you're not careful, you'll realize that those kind of values, when you're doing business, when you're interacting with other people, you got to be careful that they don't influence your behavior. And for me, one of the points you mentioned is, now when in our parents' generation, and mashallah, I experienced something similar, someone just giving you now, when you go to buy a house, they didn't need to take a mortgage. One was from the halal and haram aspect, but people would willingly give you money, and they would say, you know what, actually, give it back when you've got it. They wouldn't lose any sleep thinking, am I going to get that money back? SubhanAllah, I was in a similar situation, and 3 different people gave me £50,000 each. I was kind of gobsmacked, because now what people start thinking is, it's okay, if I invested that money, what return would I get? This is a separate point, but just going on the trust factor, that I think Islamically that was a big thing, because people knew that we know that on the day of judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah, we not enter Jannah if we owe someone any money. But this is a big amana, it's a big trust. And like you were saying, well, actually, have they really got away with it? How many people have left this country, even non-Muslims, gone to Spain after committing crime or making a lot of money and realize, well, actually, you know what, we're quite miserable. Was there more to life than making money? So actually, they've not got away with it for a short period. They're even going to be miserable in this life, and in the hereafter, definitely they're going to be in a lot of trouble. From my experience, alhamdulillah, might be the fortunate one, but in business, the Muslim community, whoever I've dealt with, a lot of guys have got these sort of ethics, and I like dealing with them because I know there's the barrier that's there is, you know what, at the end of the day, there's some accountability. Even if it's not from me, even if it's not from the contract we've got on paper, actually there's a fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think they're the kind of values within our own networks that we need to bring back. That my thing now, I'm not going to pick up the phone to Brother Adam and say, first thing, Brother Adam, you know what business are you doing? How can we make money together? I think there's too much of this, if I'm honest with you, that, you know, whenever we sit down, we talk, it's always about how can I make more money? How can I use my network with you guys to make money? Now, actually, we should do like what we were saying is how can we use our network to do other things? Sorry, I've dragged on from the point of trust, but I think that trust factor is very important when it comes to dealing with each other with money. But at the same time, this point that I was making about our conversation shouldn't be just about money, and why people lent money in the past was because they wanted to leave a legacy behind. That legacy was all about how many people could we bring back from our village to this country and financially they'll be better off. How many, you know, gone are the days when people would, you know, a very close friend of mine, his brother paid for his wedding. How many people do that now? How many people, when you're buying a house, would give you £50,000, think, well, actually, he's not going to pay me back for 5 years. What return am I going to make? So I think we've got to really question our own selves as well. That, look, at the end of the day, when we're dealing with each other, and even generally our aims, our objectives in life, how many rich guys died and not remembered? How much did Palestine give us more meaning to our life? Why have I come on this, Majid? I always say to you, I'm actually really hectic. Who isn't? All of us are. Why do we come on this? Because we want our lives to be a bit more meaningful. We want to help people. I think that's the balance we've got to have as well, because constantly on our mind is, you know, making money and these kind of things. I think this is where a lot of these problems come from.
Yeah, the priorities are all wrong,
Yeah,
aren't they?
it's upside down.
Yeah, and the intentions with which you want to make the money. It's like Adam posted something at one point about we need to have wealthy Muslims. We need to have people who have got the money, but obviously with that balance that you've just described, Barry. But in order for us to be able to uplift the community as well financially, because if people, especially like the leaders in the community, don't have that, we lack the resources to progress. Adam, do you want to expand on that a little bit? I don't do justice to your post.
I think, you know, I think in the last month I've been invited to 4 or 5 different charity events. You know, even events that are not charity events turn out to be, there's somebody, you know, asking for donations there. It turns out there's you know, one person or one slot is given to a charity. So I think a lot of people in the community are suffering from donation fatigue, or, you know, they're spent out, right? And at the same time, right, the need is greater than ever. And then there's a cost of living crisis and everything else. So I think we do need wealth in the community, but again, with wealth, you need taqwa.
Yeah.
Right? And also, I've worked most of my life up until I, you know, worked in online fitness. I worked in Muslim schools, I worked in Muslim charities, and I felt like a glorified beggar. Even in my 20s, when I was with Dawah organizations, we would requesting the rich people in our community to, you know, sponsor some of the events. And the irony of it was, one of the things that really disturbed me back then, and I think it was one of the things that propelled me to try and make more money, was the fact that we would have the Imam, our leader, berate the people selling alcohol off the minbar on a Friday. On a Monday, when we needed money for the donations, their door would be the first that we knock on, because the big businessmen, they've got money and they donate quite. Sometimes, you know, we say this sometimes, that people who are selling drugs or alcohol or whatever, right, they sometimes donate money to make themselves feel better and to neutralize that negative feeling. And so there are some people that I know in our community who have big businesses, where the income is predominantly from selling alcohol, but they're also large donors in the masjid. And everybody knows this, and the people who are looking for donations know this. And most of them don't say no, even if the money is for the masjid or for other charitable projects. So the question is, how do we rectify the
Create a
situation?
balance.
Yeah.
Just a point, Majid,
Yeah,
on
I think the
this.
key word that you used there, Adam, was taqwa. I think we have guiding principles in the deen which should guide us if we adopt them to the fullest or to the best of our ability in doing things the right way, for the right reasons, and with him in mind. I remember, we're all business people on this panel. I remember so many times, within the last few years, I get asked, how much would you charge if we paid you cash instead?
Yeah. I get
And I
that.
say I don't take cash. And they look at me in such a weird way, like you're the only one who I know who doesn't take cash, because
Well, I'm a
obviously the
second.
cash means you don't have to. Hey,
I'm a second. I don't take cash either.
yeah, I don't take cash. It's really odd to be made to feel like I'm the odd one. I'm strange, but then there's the hadith about the strangers, which kind of comforts me.
Just
Go on, Barry.
as a point, I think, just as the brother Adam mentioned, that definitely, I think, going forward, there's a cost of living crisis globally. I think it's going to be difficult for us, our children especially, living in this country, even just to pay the bills now is a big thing. It's very expensive to live in, let alone to start to give your kids even Islamic education, good tuition. And these kind of things are not easy. Even to go out and go into a restaurant, eat with your family, even going to a local kebab shop now is £10 a head. Things are not easy. But I think where we've got to be careful is that we don't use that and start to say that, now that means I've got to make sure my family, my kids, and their kids kids are financially secured. I myself have come to the conclusion that, yes, our kids do need money. If not, I'm not going to be able to pay for the gas and the electric. But our kids don't need money. Sometimes they need to go through difficult times and actually experience these things. Why you got your son stacking shelves, Majid? I was speaking to my nephew earlier on. I went to the builders at 8 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning. I thought everyone's gonna be lying in. I didn't want to disturb anyone. I was walking back, and my nephew picked me up on the way. I said, "What are you doing awake so early?" He goes, "I'm used to it now. I get up at 6:30 every morning." He goes, "Because he just started an apprenticeship 6 months ago." And subhanAllah, this has really matured him in a big way. And that goes back to the point of your son, that why is he stacking shelves? Really, it's not for the money aspect. It's from a young age to teach him that, son, if you want to achieve anything in life, you've got to roll your sleeves up and work hard. And a lot of the times, how were we brought up? We weren't brought up with a silver spoon in our mouth. Actually, we were brought up where there was a one handy and it lasted you 3 days or 4 days. And you would you went through a difficult time because then you could appreciate money. You had to go on. I started a paper round at 13. I went to university at 17 in London, 18 in London. I was mini cabbing on the weekends at 18 and 19. And I often say to my nephews, mashallah, they're very good, they work hard. I thought, nowadays, you look at a 30-year-old guy, he's sitting at home. He wants to sit at home and earn lots of money. It's not going to happen. And this is where these scams generate from. You're not going to earn, you're not going to earn money so easily by someone else. What was their ethos? We'll do the hard work, we'll lift all the weight, and you'll get the money. It doesn't work. But from my more important point, from our kids, yes, it's different if they're buying and selling on eBay. Yes, this is the new world we live in. But I would stay away from these pyramids and actually teach our kids and ourselves actually some values and principles that when we're not around, they'll be able to steer themselves through life
and navigate. Yeah, navigate. Yeah, 100%. Ahmed, just on that point, Ahmed and I were talking earlier on about ethics and morals, and we were talking about charities as well. And I was, Ahmed, you might as well tell the story yourself about the request that you received about the charity. We're talking about morals and ethics and how the means don't justify the ends.
I think my friends will all switch off now because they know my view on charity and Islamic charities. However, I got a request the other day from Muslim sister um, for a charity event, which was a Bhangra, Bollywood, and R&B night, dinner and dance, in order to raise funds for Gaza. And I mean, I was speechless. I think everyone I've spoken to had shared that. I mean, I don't want to meet the person who thinks that it's the right idea. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
and you know,
was it a Muslim charity though? That's the question.
so they weren't a charity. They were going to raise the funds and then pass the money on to another charity. So they weren't a
But they were
charity.
Muslims, right? Who were
They were
raising the funds.
Muslims. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
Muslims. They were
Oh,
Muslims,
okay.
and they were
Can you give
they were
Adam the
supposed
address? I think he'll attend that one. That's what I was asking.
Because I've seen some non-Muslims do that, and if they do that, that's their thing, isn't it?
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right, bro. Absolutely right. So my issue was that you're fundamentally Muslim, and the rebuttal to me was, but it's a sisters only event. And but the sisters are Muslims, right? And she was like, yeah. I just couldn't carry on. I'll be on. At what point have we lost the focus on charity, where we are now totally engulfed in this commercial, westernized form of charity, where we can do any. I have to humiliate myself. I was going to say shave my hair off, but that's that's all done. I have to do a bungee jump, or I have to cycle to France, and people are going to give me money, or I have to do these kind of events in the name of Islam. That alhamdulillah, the Muslims are giving. The Muslims give money. The Muslims, when it comes to charity, alhamdulillah, they are giving, and people play on this. I mean, this was a new low for me, this Bhangra night, and I was dumbfounded. But where have we lost that focus? Where actually the spirit and essence of Islamic charity has gone.
And that comes back to what Adam and Ibrar were saying about bringing up your children in the right way, in the right morals and ethics, so they have some guiding principles to live by. And if you've had that from the beginning, you won't go down that path when you're older. You'd question everything. Similarly, I was invited to a charity fundraiser for Gaza, and it was and the main entertainment act was Paul Chowdhury. So it was like a comedy act. I mean, I don't like Paul Chowdhury's comedy anyway, but a comedy act for that, I'm like, can you not see where the problem is? Do you know what I mean? I think when it comes to other activities like bungee jumping or skydiving, I mean, I've done a skydive for charity, and I'm somebody who has a fear of heights. Well, I've grown into having fear of heights, and I didn't used to. So for me, it was more of a challenge to try and get over that. But I would never have done it normally. And people do, climbing mountains and stuff like that. See, I'm all up for that, to be fair. I think there are some kids or youth who need that motivation or an incentive to get involved in an activity amongst other people. As long as for me, it's not a mixed event. When you've got physical activities to that degree where there's going to be a lot of mixed contact, then that for me it becomes a bit of a question mark. But I guess some events there's a segregation, fine, but when there isn't that, then for me there becomes a question mark on that. But I'm all up for activities. I think they are good in some ways, and they get people together. They raise awareness. I think there are some positives in that. But I think what you're referring to, Amr, is the Bhangra and the R&B nights, which I totally agree with. I think Adam's getting his shoes polished, the white ones, for his dancing. But so
The
just
Bhangra is
do
the
share the
problem.
address.
It's just the Bhangra is the problem. We're okay with the R&B. I'm joking.
I think the point, like your brother mentioned, Majid, was that look, in anything we do, when you lose the spirit, look, what's the difference between Muslims when we do business and make money and the capitalists? That we have for the capitalist, it's always about him. How am I going to maximize my pleasure, maximize my profits, maximize my benefit? Whereas for the Muslims, it's always the spirit. It comes in, those values, the ethics we talk about. And even when we do business, why was it that actually a majority of times, was it Malaysia, Indonesia, and many places throughout China, why did Islam get to those nations? a lot of the times it was the Muslim traders that went. Look how they behave. Look how they trade. Why did Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say that you will find out about a person when you do two things with them? One is you have money dealings, and secondly, when you go on a journey with them. Now, for us, this is why we changed. One of the reasons we changed people, because the way we deal with them, and a lot of that is based on, like Brother Adam said, is based on taqwa. Our society doesn't run. We don't run a police state. Sadly, I do business. You've got to watch your part, your workers. You've got to watch, in this day and age, alhamdulillah, I'm probably one of the fortunate ones. You got to watch your partner. You got to watch this person. You got to watch that person. Make sure no customers are robbing you. And then you realize, well, actually, a society that doesn't run on taqwa is dysfunctional. You can't do business.
You're right.
You can't do anything.
I saw a video of somebody on that note, and they were mentioning, how can you call your society and your Western world the developed world when you need a law for everything? You need a law for every little thing. How many laws do you have? You have laws for building on your own property, right? What kind of sense is that? You have laws for certain things because you can't trust yourselves. you can't trust your own environment and your own community and your own the people who live in your countries to just do the right thing. Whereas in Islam, obviously, we have a code of conduct and a code, and obviously those number of laws are very minimal compared to the Western legal system and how many laws there are for certain different things. But he was making the point that when you've got a society based on certain moral framework, you have that moral framework which guides them in every facet of life, and you don't need to have a specific law for specific little things. But when you live in a dysfunctional society, you need to legislate so very often and have so many instruments of legislation that you have to keep your society in control. So it's fascinating you said that, Barry. Brother Muhammad says, I think is a brother, Muslim UK charity, and then he's actually asterisked that in a further comment. Most Muslim UK charities have very discreet supply chains. Conflict of interest is not recognized and could potentially be seen as a business relationship. What do you make of that?
That's again, it's something that I've been going on about for ages. We don't ask enough questions of our charities. I know certain brothers who really, really bang on their doors. But let's go back to the consumers. Let's not talk about someone who's an expert in Islamic finance. Let's talk about us, the consumers who want to give money to a charity. Get it off our heads. It's saved on your pay list. Get it off your head. Pay it. It's done. Allahu Alim. It's done. No, that's not good enough. Not good enough. Why? Because we're not living in under Sharia law, Islamic country. We need to ask our questions. Where is our money going? We tie our camel, right? We're told to tie our camel. Protect everything that we do. If you start knocking on the doors of a lot of charities, and I understand the dynamics of charity, and charities have to pay some salaries, and they have expense. Absolutely, I've run business since I was 11 years old. I've got no issues. I understand the dynamics, but the percentages and proportions is what I'm concerned about. And at that time, if we don't ask those questions, I think we were talking about this, so donation dilution. So many people don't know this, don't understand this. Okay, you think that I've given money to charity X, it's done. But actually, it's not done because charity X hasn't actually got the means to do anything on the ground in the target area. So charity X will give money to charity Y. They'll take their cut out of it. Charity Y will then take their cut out of it. Then they'll give it to a handler on the ground. The handler will take their cut out of it. So your donation has now diluted down to like 40% of its original value. We have to know these things. As Muslims, we should ask these questions. And the charity should be transparent about it. And what is the fear? What are you scared of not telling the consumers what you're doing? I've had arguments for the last possibly 8 years with a particular charity about their transparency. You are not telling people what you're doing. What are you scared of? You're scared of not raising funds. Allah is greater than you. Allah will provide, inshallah. That's what we believe. But at the same time, we have to ask these questions. We don't ask these questions. And moving our charity ethos to a commercialized charity where, I raise £5 million, so I deserve 100k or 200k salary, and we can expense the paper, and we can expense this, and we have suppliers who are my cousins, and in a country where that's fine, That's not within the Islamic ethos. I understand that the zakat collector can take a salary, and this is the one small caveat that everyone uses, and I hear this over and over again. But what we've done is we've forgotten that the whole concept of money in Islam and wealth creation, we've actually amassed the zakat collectors have amassed the wealth, and their target markets are still in need. And it makes my blood boil. Some of the card collectors that we call now have their six-figure salaries and their Range Rovers, and the people they're raising funds for are still in need, and they're still have been in need for years and years and years. So we've gone
Mm.
away from those Islam, and it comes down to what Adam said: taqwa. Now, fear of Allah, where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it?
I was
Where is
saying,
it?
Brother Mir, to Majid, I said, Majid, you've got to be careful though. When he said, come on to the show and we'll discuss this topic, I said, what we don't want to become is like Geo and AOY. When all you put it on and say, now this scam is happening in Pakistan, or this guy is selling haram meat to make money, and all you ever seem to be thinking, and then you say to the kids, let's go to Pakistan. They say, no way we're going anywhere. All the Pakistanis are dodgy. They're like this, they're like that. Alhamdulillah, we are very growing in number. We're dominating in a lot of areas. Our charities are dominating. Definitely, I'd agree with you that, look, I think now, whether it's the certain charities who take a big salary, I think a lot of people have really wiped their hands off them. They've even gone to the ones who donate 100%. And to be honest with you, the circles I'm having the discussion, well, even those who donate 100%, people have cut the ones off who don't even give the gift aid. That okay, don't keep the gift aid. Actually, say 100% don't. So Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of positives on the same side. Whether that's dealing in business with people, or whether that's charity, whether it's the masjids that have been self-funded. Our parents didn't have money to, they borrowed money when they came into this country. They were in a lot of debt, but still they built their institutions. They still built a framework for us to keep our identity, and for us that's important to carry on. But we've just got to be careful that we're not naive. I was always
Mm.
told you live in a capitalist society. Don't ever think the effects of it are not going to be on you. So when you're dealing with people, like Brother Amir said, do your due diligence. These pyramid schemes should be banned. They're utter nonsense. I just absolutely hate them. And and secondly, anyone who wants to advertise, give money and advertise his business linked to the mosque or an event, I would ban them. I wouldn't take his money.
No, I think it's a good point, bro, that you made. And I think it's a good leveler as well. And it's really take it into a conversation and all talk about negatives. But alhamdulillah, I'm sure between us, we all know lots of good brothers and sisters who do lots of good things in the name of Islam or with Islam behind it. There's good businesses, good organizations, good people who actually do things, and you think, oh, wow, that's amazing. He's not a scammer, or he's not. He's doing things in the right way. Unfortunately, it's always the bad points that we pick up on and want to discuss, and the good guys almost get overlooked. But alhamdulillah,
Mm.
there are lots of good organizations and lots of good businesses who do amazing work, without which all over the world, we
Yeah,
see
and
the
I think
state.
this is probably an apt time to bring up the fact that whilst we're doing this discussion and having this discussion today about what's happened over the last couple of days, it's important to remember just because there are a few bad apples in a community doesn't mean that everybody who is religious is bad, because there are people who are religious may not be so outwardly religious or display their what was the,
Religiosity. I struggle with it as well.
you struggle with that as well.
I'm not.
Religiosity.
Religiosity. You know what I
It
mean.
is.
But their faith on display basically is probably a less of a tongue twister to say for me. And then there are people who have this was the warning sign, wasn't it, for some people when their faith was on full display, talking about dreams where they saw or they heard the voice of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, somebody who read Tahajjud, and as soon as she woke up, or in Tahajjud, after Tahajjud, she saw the signs of this person's flyer, and that was a sign for her to get in touch and invest with him. And sometimes he sees Angel Jibrail. That's when you start, the question marks are there, aren't there? In fact, there was a whole list of things where there were so many dreams that this guy had, And that you think to yourself, well, what kind of dream is that?
I mean, imagine to come into there. Sorry to cut you, but if someone's having dreams after they've read the Hajj about money, I think that's probably a dream that you're gonna end up in Jahannam rather than Jannah. So I think I'd question that anyway. And leading on to a point is that my personal thing, Majid, and brothers on the podcast, is that I realize if you get comfortable, whether you're living in any environment, you don't constantly beat your nafs and question it and fight yourself. Everyone has these things. Living in a capitalist society, we all want to be comfortable. We all want to have certain security around us. But if you don't regularly, daily cleanse and question yourselves about, actually, you know what, Allah, you know, I don't want to make this, or I'd want to die just making money. I'd want to make it the main purpose of my life. Actually, have I really helped someone today, or has it just been about me? If constantly you're not cleansing yourself like this, you're definitely going to fall into these traps. Is when you
100%.
get comfortable and you think, you know what, fine, I've got a beard, I pray, I don't eat haram, I do this, you know, I'm okay. No, hold on a minute. Actually, daily question yourself, not just those around you, that how can I better myself? What values and ethics have I taken on board that actually are not from Islam?
Yeah.
This will stop these things, because this is pure kufr. You know, a lot of these things are utter nonsense what you're doing with the community. And when I went to that Palestine event, actually one of the closest brothers who went, and when that guy come on at the end, that subhanallah, I've sponsored this event, and you know, I've paid for everything. Now I just want to promote my business, this pyramid. I think, hold on a minute, this guy needs shooting. How can you do that on a Palestinian event? You know, alhamdulillah, we've got local businesses, local supermarkets, mashallah, you know, Brother Razak, these packed foods, and there's so many locally. They've always sponsored events. They've always given to the community. They've always given in the way of Islam, but never do they want their names to be mentioned. They're normal guys.
True.
And those are the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses.
Yeah.
So all of these things, to me, you know what, is a lot of things living here. We really need to grind our nafs and really question these things. We're too comfortable, and we are in this circle too much. I often question myself. I'm amongst the guys in work, in business, in money making. What occupies my mind? Is it raising my children? Is it my 90-year-old mother? How much time I'm spending with them? What am I doing for Palestine? What am I doing to better my community? What am I doing with my children? Or is it just how am I going to make my next thousands? You know, what is on my mind? And a lot of the guys who fall into these traps, it is those things.
It's to make 9 figures in 9 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff, it grinds my gears.
Just to wrap up on the last question about the charity, Brother Safraz, a good friend of mine, lovely brother, says the issues of 100% donation policy needs looking at as well. We need analysis, please. Something that is public knowledge, such as charities, commission, website, and company's house, can and should be quoted. Fair point. And you know, there are charities now who don't take a penny, even from the what's that thing called where you get 20% extra? Gift aid. And they will say we give 120% or 125. I think 25%, isn't it? That we give 125% is our donation policy. And I've seen people on the ground, charities on the ground, who actually do that. We went along with Muslims in Need to Cairo to help the Palestinian refugees, and the money that we raised was accounted for, every penny of it, including the gift aid. But your brother Saf, you know, he's right in terms of it does need clarity in some ways, but people need to be educated as well. There are some people who don't even have the energy or desire to even check things like charities commission or company's house and stuff like that. So these are tools available which show you where money is being spent, and you can see how much is going to admin costs, how much is going in salaries, and so on and so forth. So Isaac Hussein or Ishaq Hussein is saying, I pointed the signs out for people to see in a YouTube video, and everyone was blinded by money, calling me the scammer. Which is quite ironic, isn't it? When you're pointing at, is it referring to Aaqib here? When you're pointing these things out, I suppose it also depends on that given time. In that given time, what is it that you had the issue with? If I'm just being critical here, and if I'm going to be nitpicking, I suppose, obviously, with hindsight, you were right. But were you right because of the reasons you pointed out then, or were you right because, or you could be right because of what's surfaced now, if you know what I mean. So were you right because of your reasons then, which could have been wrong, but this could have been right, if you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm even making sense right now, but the reasons you picked out at the time, Brother Isaac, were they solid reasons enough? But I suppose for you to be called a scammer in return is a bit sad, isn't it? That's probably not the right thing to do. But on that note, then, Adam, you have a list of things you were telling me. You put up in a post like a framework of the things that you go through in deciding whether to make some kind of investment or not. Can you quickly share that with us?
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on what Brother Ibrahim was saying in terms of we need taqwa. That's correct, but what's how you know, we have to be careful of capitalism. But what people are doing is they've taken taqwa and taken religion, and they're using the best tools of marketing and capitalism, and they're twisting it and putting it in an Islamic package. Right, that's what's happening. This is what this whole scam was about. That's, you know, people. I mean, like I said, this one wasn't elaborate. I'm seeing others that are far more elaborate, and the numbers aren't stacking up. And you know, the MEN, they were much better marketers, right? And you know, the Muslim Entrepreneur Network and stuff. So that's the problem now. People are taking Islam and using marketing. Like I've heard stories with, and you know, one of the brothers that you mentioned earlier, before the podcast, and that brother's name came up. You know, he had somebody on a call. He told him, "I'm going to coach you £16,000 or something," and he said to him, "Look, Allah's giving you an opportunity to change your life, and if you don't take it, you're being ungrateful." Like, and this brother was
Precious sales, eh?
This brother was falling for it. I said, "Wow!" Like that to me immediately would have disqualified the person.
So just to clarify, then this brother was saying to his prospect, Allah has given you an opportunity, and if you don't take it, you're basically kicking away Allah's gift to you.
And you know, all this flowery religious rhetoric.
Wow.
Nothing about the results. So in terms of the points, right, one of the things is, number one, look for results. Look for results, because what I want to be careful of, like you were saying, is we don't want to sort of talk negative and throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I'm seeing that happening now. Our community is already very skeptical and paranoid, and they fear that everything's a scam and everyone's a scam, and we don't want to perpetuate that even further, because I do think there is a need for entrepreneurship for the reasons I mentioned earlier, that we've got charities, we've got so many things, so many gaps we need to fill. And when I worked in a Muslim school, and I worked in the masjid, I was on a minimum wage, right? And they couldn't keep me for long because I couldn't survive on minimum wage. And I was a good teacher. And I've seen so many teachers, like a revolving door. Good teachers come and then they go to, you know, conventional schools and colleges because they can't make ends meet. So we need to be able to pay our staff well, pay our imams well, have good institution for our children, and all of that needs money, right? And so I feel that entrepreneurship is required, and plus to give us freedom from the current economic system, which is enslavement, right? In some ways, and I'm sounding like the marketers now, right? But in some ways, it enslaves us to the powers that be, right? So we need to have our own products, services, you know. Right now, when we're boycotting, I feel like I can't enjoy alternatives. Right? I can't enjoy anything, right? You know, so we need these alternatives, and somebody needs to create them. So a lot of the brothers started with good intentions, like, you know, you create a product or service that adds value to human beings, and you know, Zig Ziglar, he says that, you know, if you give people what they want, you get what you want. Right? Give a good quality, honest service, right? And then people will, you know, more. You'll get more customers. They'll be happy. It's a win-win situation, and that's what we're aiming for. Now, if you're trying to, you know, hire a coach or mentor or invest into, this is more about hiring coaches and mentors rather than investments. Is look for results, right? Look for results. Don't go for the inshallah, mashallah. Ignore all of that, right? Just look for results. And don't go for appearance. Now, if you're new and you're starting out and you haven't got results, how can you get results? Offer your service free, or offer it at a discounted rate till you get results, and then market those results. But get results. And secondly, when you ask for results, ask what is the average number, not the one outlier, right? And don't expect that every course you're going to go on is going to have all of the pieces that you need and you're going to become, super successful. There's a lot of building blocks, and a lot of it's up to the student, not just the person delivering the course. But so ask for average results. Like on my fitness program, like I had a guy, who lost 28.8 kg in 12 weeks, right? Without
Wow.
dieting, without exercising. And I tag him quite often. Hafiz Bakas from London, right? Tooting, right? And I I did what these marketers did, and that's what I was sold on, right? Now market this result now. Constantly, hey, you can lose 28 kg. And I did that for a few weeks, right? Then I thought, a few people questioned me about it, and I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? That's an outlier.
Mm.
It's more honest and ethical to go with the average. And so now I say, um, when I give expectations, I give the average result. This is the average you can expect to lose. And Muslim markets, I feel, should lead with average results, not the one outlier. But I think too many people are going with the one outlier. And in
Mm.
some cases I've seen they have no results. They're just going off with pie in the sky figures. Like I had a guy,
Or making up bank statements and pulling, yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, literally.
from that same crowd say to me in 2021 he was going to take my business to £200,000 a month in 90 days. And I got onto a sales call with him, and he had a partner who tried hard selling me, and it really put me off. He was being quite crude. He's like, you need balls for this. He goes, when he saw that I wasn't buying into it, he said, look, you need balls for this. You're going to sit there and he used some foul language.
Mm.
Just before he reminded me he's getting late to get to the masjid for us.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, I felt horrible at the end of that call. And I've had similar experience with a number of guys from that clique, similar experiences, right? And I don't know where they're getting these marketing tactics from, because I've worked with non-Muslim coaches and mentors, and a lot of these tactics, they tell me, don't do that. Don't use these tactics. And they're still using them, these outdated, high pressure tactics that leave the buyer feeling crap.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, Brother Ahmed, just on your from your profession, obviously being a fraud and scam investigator, for the benefits of the audience, what are the common things to look out for generically, irrespective of irrespective of what faith they belong to? What are the common kinds of frauds and scams being committed right now, and what are the red flags that we need to look out for? Because for somebody who is quite IT savvy, there might be things that they'll pick up on more than others. There are people who are having their WhatsApp accounts being hijacked. There are people who are being sent links which look like they're from their own bank, but they're not. Just maybe a letter different in the email address. Just little things like that might be obvious to somebody who's IT savvy, but most people are very busy or maybe ignorant as to what to look out for, or maybe just simply not aware of what to look out for. So in your experience, just to add some value to the viewers, what are the common things which are being done right now in terms of fraud and scams with the average or the Joe Blog, the consumers out there, and how do we look out for them and prevent ourselves from getting into those kind of problems?
Yeah, so it's a difficult answer to put into a shorter space of time. There are lots of scams. The most common ones at the moment, I mean, obviously the investment scams over crypto and your traditional old investment scams of bank bonds and stuff like that are pretty much I'm not saying disappeared, but they're still around. But yeah, so for investment scams, I think, very, very simply look at what you're investing in. I've spoken to people who've actually given money but actually don't understand what they're investing in. Are they investing in a company? Are they investing in a person? Are they investing in a product? What are they investing in? What are the returns? What are the returns promised, and how quickly are they promised? Short, high returns promised quickly is usually a massive red flag. What Brother Adam was saying, is it too good to be true? It usually is. If a business is giving you about 10, 12, 30% net these days, I mean, I say that's pretty decent. How can someone then offer you suddenly 25, 30, 40% returns, 100% returns, 150% returns? I've seen crazy figures, and people put money on there. So look out for things like that. Look out for things like uh, cloak and dagger, not wanting to give you contracts, not wanting to give you information, not wanting to give you company details. Not A common one is asking you not to let anyone else know. Don't tell your friends what you're doing because want to make it lucrative for you. I've seen a scam, Ponzi scheme, within a bunch of friends. They all invested. They all didn't tell each other. Five, six of them, crazy. But
Wow.
speak to do mashwara. Mashwara was a practice of Prophet Sallallahu. Do mashwara. Speak to people of knowledge, and say, look, I've got this investment. What do you need? What do you think? Does it sound legit? Does it sound, speak to people. Um, that's on the face of it, investment scams. But yeah, the WhatsApp scams, they're very common. Uh, Again, you need to look out for things like people claiming to be relatives. That's quite popular in the last 12 months. Very commonly, they'll say, "Hi, it's me," and sometimes the scammers will have information about you already.
Mm.
They'll be using different tools to get information about you already. So by the time the scam starts, they'll probably know your name, they'll probably know your address, they'll probably know your date of birth. That's probably information you get quite easily. And they'll say something like, "Oh, it's me, it's Imran, I'm your son, my phone, I've lost my phone." And you'll
Mm.
suddenly start this WhatsApp conversation and money gets transferred in. So that's a very common scam right now. The email scam, again, again spot on. That's a very common scam, very, very common where the email's intercepted and literally one letter or number is changed with an email address. It's really hard to spot. I've seen email
Mm.
addresses, and even I've had to look 2 or 3 times, think, hang on, where's that change? Um, you know, Again, if anything diverts from what you've agreed with, so very commonly in the email scams, you'll have a process going on already. Maybe some building work is a common one, and suddenly the builder will say, "Actually, can you pay me in my other account?" And here it is. Or you know what? My accounts, I've overdrawn in that account. I don't want to lose this money. Can you transfer it to my wife's account? Look out for changes and sudden changes. That's usually a red flag. And just take a step back and just think about what you're being asked to do. A lot of the scammers put a lot of pressure on you. They'll put, quick, got to do this. I mean, I think everyone's now aware of the mobile phone. We'll give you an iPhone 16 right now if you sign up right now. You can't do it later on. You have to do it right now. So just think about what you're being offered. Think about the pressure that's around you. And try and take that step back. Not everything is
Mm.
a scam, and that's the problem. There are legitimate
Mm.
businesses out there, and there are good people out there. But these are some of the few things that you can do. Um, uh, Car purchase scams. That's another big one. It's something I worked on for quite a while. It was really took off after COVID, where you couldn't go to see a car. So you'd say what people say. I'll send you a video. You send me a deposit, and then if you don't like the car, we can collect it back off you. And part of that is that we'll ship it to you as well. We'll have a transport company. They'll clone documents, and boom, gone. Your money's gone, and they can't ever. And you can go onto Auto Trader, just take a car, and say, "This is the car I've got." So due diligence is used a lot when it comes to scams. Sometimes it's hard to do due diligence. Sometimes the
Mm.
scams are so elaborate that a lot of the due diligence just won't do anything. So what I always try and say to people is tidy your camel as best as you can.
Yeah. And if you're
Take
not
that
sure about
greed
something, better
aspect,
to
that
talk to
FOMO.
somebody else about it before pressing the button and making any transfers or
Sorry,
sharing
you
information.
broke
Sorry,
you broke up
can
there.
you
I
hear
couldn't, I
me?
didn't get you on that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
good
so
now.
I was just adding to what you were saying that if you're not sure about something, speak to somebody and get a second
Make much
opinion
for
before.
I
Yeah.
say absolutely, bro. I say that to so many people. It was a practice of the Prophet ﷺ. He made much for on so many aspects of his life, from wars, from treaties, from really important aspects of his life, and that's coming from the Prophet ﷺ himself, the person who we believe was the most guided person to walk the face of this earth. Yet he was making much more from the people around him. So utilize your friends, your family, your circles. We all have friends and families with different skill sets and knowledge and everything like that. Use them. That advice is usually free. You know, speak to people. Say, look, I've got this guy. You know, he's offered me um, flight tickets to Umrah on business class, and they're £600 on Saudi Airlines. What do you think? I'm not just going to be stupid enough to purchase straight away. Let me just speak to someone quickly. Take you 2 minutes. And someone with knowledge will say, bro, there's no flights for £600 on business class to Saudi. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. Ask those questions and do your
Talking
search.
about Umrah flight packages and Saudi Airlines, £600. Imagine how many people have been duped into Umrah and Hajj packages.
I've seen it.
Scams.
That's a specific example I just said was a real life scam where the person was offered 2 flights on business class to Saudi for Umrah on Saudi Airlines for £600 each, and they didn't want to miss that opportunity on business class. They were like, "Yeah, just pay it straight away."
Wow.
And you know, people have no. You know, we like to think that Muslims hold themselves to an account with a higher bar, but not everyone does. Sadly, we have to look beyond the beard.
Yeah,
And
I think Amr Bhai, there's another important thing which we can't ignore here, whether it be the Ponzi schemes or the Aaqib Ahmed scenario or the Umrah and Hajj packages. If you think about some of the commonalities amongst these, they're all driven by emotion. There are some people who may buy into, look, if somebody's going to be paying, however naive this sounds, but people do end up thinking, oh, okay, could this be a sign from God, right? I'm getting offered a £600 business class package because God's calling me. Maybe that's all I can afford, but God's calling me to that place. You hear a lot of people always, being proud of the fact that, people don't go there just by their own accord. It's when they're invited they get to go there. But if Allah sending you someone with a £600 package for 2 tickets, business class, to, maybe that's God's way of doing things in His infinite power and wisdom. And then when you got things like the Ponzi schemes, like this one that we were discussing earlier. And that's another thing. I'm not sure he actually set out to do that at the beginning either. I get the feeling that it turned into that. I could be totally wrong. But I don't know whether, and I'm not satisfied yet to believe that he actually intended to go out and do it that way. But even then, using the religious element or the faith element, people buy into ideas and people buy into strategies, schemes, or projects, or whatever you might want to call them, based on their religious affiliation and their desire to want to feel good about something psychologically and in the heart, to feel like, you know what, I'm actually putting my money towards something which is associated with the deen and the religion and stuff like that. Rightfully or wrongfully, whatever you might make of them, psychologically there's an impact when you mention religion on a lot of people who do have that connection. The religious connection may not be as practicing, but because there is that connection, it makes them feel better. And there's that feel good factor that, this is, at least if I've done haram in earning the money, let me spend it in a halal way of leaving it for my offspring or whatever. It might be a get out jail card kind of thing. So we can't ignore the fact that the faith and religious connection made in the pitch of any of these projects, it can't be denied that a lot of people would be, call it fooled into buying into it.
Unfortunately, confidence winning and confidence scams. I agree with you. Reading on the parameters of what happened with this Aaqib thing, I don't know. I believe he probably didn't set out to scam people. But however, what can't be ignored is what you said. The religion has been used to get people in, and sadly, it always has been. It's been the day since the Prophet Muhammad's time. Look how many people have claimed to be Imam Mahdi from Prophet Muhammad's time, right? So religion has always been used as a tool because you take the confidence of the person, and if you will look at someone and think, I'm an honest person, and I understand my deen and I hold my deen in high regard. I pray 5 times a day. I fast. I try to charity. I try to do all of these things. And you know what? Someone's doing something in the name of Islam. We share that common ground now. So we've got a common understanding. I don't have to say to you, if we're talking about, I said, well, it's Latin. I don't need to explain what's going on. We've got that common ground, and they use that. And sadly, the rights and wrongs of it are obvious, but people do use it, and they will continue to use it. And that's why there are so many hadiths about business, how you conduct business, even scams. I keep going back to tying your camel. We're talking about 1400 years ago. We were giving this advice. This advice wasn't said to, in 1400 years, there'll be a load of people, they need this advice. It was given to the people then as well. So these scams and these different types of scams, they would obviously look different, and these problems would look differently, but these problems have always been there. So take your time. And I always say, look beyond your beard. On the borders of Pakistan, you have people who will sell drugs, but they won't miss Salah. They won't miss Salah. And they will leave their bags of whatever they have. They will praise Salah, and they will say that this was for Allah, this is for me. So we have to look beyond the beard, look beyond the religion sometimes. I'm not saying, everyone who claims to be religious is a scammer. No, man, of course not.
No, of course not. Of course not. It's just, it's like you said, it's the mirroring effect in sales tech, sales strategies. Me and Adam were talking about the spin model of using the pain points of people to try and sell a solution to them, and it can get quite emotionally intensive. I've had people crying in my sales calls because we've not just stuck the knife in, but we twisted it. But some people use that to such an extent that they forget that there's a moral and ethical duty with the way you use these tools, even with prospects that you are selling to. Even from an Islamic perspective, every time I've done a masterclass in sales for my clients in sales, it's a disclaimer I put at the beginning. I say, look, some of the things that you learn here, they could be very dangerous. You could really manipulate somebody. But this is why you need to be really conscious about the ethics and morals surrounding the strategies you deploy into selling anything and getting somebody, because the difference between just selling and getting somebody to buy. And we need to be conscious of that. The religious element, again, because of that commonality, people will say, old school salespeople, I mean, these are some old strategies in sales. People will say to you, look, when you've got something in common with someone, you're likely to trust them more than somebody who doesn't have anything in common with you. So, this is why they talk about paying compliments and stuff like that, because it adds an affinity towards liking somebody, as long as it sounds genuine and not too cheesy and corny. But when you do that, it shows, okay, well, if someone's complimenting my anything, my top as an example, or a tie or a shirt, it's because they like it, and I'm wearing it because I like it. So that's given us something in common. But that's just a very obvious, very low level sales technique in building rapport or building a connection. I prefer to use a connection building process rather than a rapport. Again, finer nuances there again. But that religious element always has people locked in. Ibra, what were you going to say?
So I think just coming into that discussion, but I think the sad thing is what we need to do, like Brother Ahmed said, looking at it in a different way, is actually take Islam beyond the beard, beyond the jubba, and actually look at the values, the morals, the ethics in Islam. A majority of Islam is to do with muamalat, how do you deal with each other. And this is not, look, people now are baffled about what's the man's right, what's the woman's right, whole feminism, whole masculinity, but it was resolved.
People are baffled about what is a man and what is a woman nowadays. Forget the rights.
This was resolved at the time of the Prophet ﷺ because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us solutions for human beings. It's a way of life, we say, isn't it? So if you look at it, even when it comes to economics, business, investment, partnerships, you invest, but someone else hasn't got the money, but he's got the skill, you do partnership together. There's ways you invest. There has to be, a clear, tangible asset, a product. There has to be clear offer and accept. All of these things are detailed. Some of these things that are around, they're borderline whether they are even halal to do. Do you see? And my issue is that they're the kind of things we need to start bringing back as a benchmark whenever whatever we do in life, whether it's charity, whether it's business, and then you'll see that will be the safety zone. Not like Brother Adam said, where the name's Islamic, but the values are from capitalism. I think that's really important. My biggest advice would be that, look, guys, what benchmark do we need? I always have a problem, and sometimes I used to question myself on it. Now, when I'm catching up with Majid about for a coffee, or we're going out to eat, what are we talking about? Is my conversation just with Majid? How can we make more money? Majid, what business can we do? Now, what about this investment, Majid? What about that investment? That, for me, I've got a problem with my nafs. Because
And we've never had that conversation.
that's right. And a
ever.
lot of guys you sit with now, it's all about making money. But even if they've got million, they want 2, they want 3. Well, actually, the limited time you have on this dunya, is that all your purpose is? Shouldn't we, in our networks, a lot of the times be about, okay, I've got a teenage daughter, you've got one. Raising children is difficult. What should we do? Palestine, what's going on? And fine, there's a certain percentage where, look, you've got a business, I'm struggling. What advice would you give me? But I think our environments are being polluted. A lot of it now is by just making money. And that's where we've got to be careful as well, because that's when you'll get trapped in.
100%.
Yeah, agreed.
I was reading sorry, I was just going to jump in there. I was reading a post the other day. It's a really, really simple comment, but it's played on my head for a few days now. And it was very basically that Sahaba are trying to attain Jannah and the best of Jannah. We are trying to attain both. And that was it. And I said, both? What do you mean both? And they said, yeah, we want Jannah, but we want the... Where are we going to
we want the Aaqib, but we want the dunya as well. There's nothing wrong in asking for it.
Yeah.
But how much effort are you... Yeah, how much effort do you invest in either,
Someone once told me, and I need to find out the authenticity, but I've actually applied it, where actually when you're in the masajid, you shouldn't be talking about things to do with business, to do with the dunya. Your focus, you should leave that at the front door. So generally I get text messages when I'm in the masjid from work or whatever. I make it a principle, I'll only open them when I'm outside. And I have a big problem when guys, when they're in the masjid, they're trying to promote the business. You can't do that. And I think it's those kind of red lines we need to bring back. Whether someone wants to sponsor your show or Islam channel or whatever it is, you got to be careful that fine. Someone wants to sponsor a restaurant, that's different.
Ironically, sorry to cut you short there, Barry, just on the point of the masjid, on that point about not talking about business in the masjid, ironically, I prayed Jummah yesterday in Derby Jamia Mosque. We had to attend a janazah there, and that was exactly the topic that the Imam was discussing, the etiquettes of being in the masjid, the things you can and shouldn't be, in fact, you shouldn't be talking about anything other than doing your zikr and stuff like that. And he even mentioned, and I thought to myself, I know I'm sidetracking here, but he says, things like if you pray Saiful Maluk and stuff like that, Hazrat Umar radiallahu anh used to have a different room for that kind of thing. If you want to do poetry and all that kind of thing, it's not that it's wrong, but it's not, the masjid is not the place for it. There has to be clear segregation with what can and can't be done in the masjid. I don't know. There's so many different hadiths. And then you've got the hadith of the tribe that came and did their own cultural dance in Medina, and Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anh was actually leaning over the shoulder of the Prophet ﷺ to watch that. And then how do you interpret that? And then some scholars interpret it one way and others in a different way.
And then there's a view as well that the masjid was used as a central hub for the community where everything took place. So that's another...
Yeah, that's quite a common thing. But again, it doesn't conflict with these things either. That if the masjid was used for that, I guess...
I think with the other point, more that, look, the masjid is not just zikr. It's about, you talk about what's going on in Palestine, you talk about global affairs, you talk about the betterment of your community. People used to wrestle in the mosque. There's all these things. But now, for me, just to say, okay, I want to promote my business, or I think you've got to just be a bit careful on that. I mean, I was in Brick Lane put into context, I read Jummah in Brick Lane on Friday, and the Imam Subhanallah did such a good, to the point, 10-minute, 5-minute khutbah, and it was on marriage problems. That you've got real issues within our communities, marriage, raising children, there's all of these things, and you realize when you've got the real life's problems, money's not going to resolve it. None of your money, even if you've got $1 million, $2 million in the bank, that's not going to resolve any of these, nor will it give you that sukoon or the tranquility. So that's where that balance needs to come in. Yes, definitely we need money. You can't even go to the local kebab shop now without money. It's very expensive living. But at the same time, it has a very certain remit, and we should keep it within that.
Right, lads. I think we've taken a lot of time this evening. It's been excellent chatting. Just on a closing point, though, to wrap this up, we've obviously been discussing a lot in this. Maybe we should do another one at some point to expand on some of the points that we've been discussing in more shorter segments. But the whole point of doing this was A, to understand that yes, there is a lot of talk around the social media town about what has happened with the Muslim Pioneer Project or the Legacypreneur university thing that they were running. The bottom line is that you'll get bad apples in every community, and just because one person has used religion for so long, from my understanding, has done well with that at the beginning, but then things went wrong in recent years. However it is, doesn't matter which community you associate with, whether it's a Muslim or not, always do as much due diligence as you can before you take the plunge and invest your money in anything. And you've heard the points throughout this podcast, throughout this recording. The brothers have made some poignant points and important points about how due diligence can be done. So refer back to them. Inshallah, we will catch up once again. Brothers Adam, Ibra, and Amir Bhai, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your insight. If you want to share any last few words, each of you, then we can wrap this up. So, Amir Bhai, any last few words? Start with you.
Yeah. So again, just want to reiterate, inshallah, when you're making your investments, try and do as much due diligence as possible, and make mashwara with the people around you, and utilize the tools that are around you, FCA, company's house, all these kind of things. And if you don't know about these things, ask someone. Make mashwara, and inshallah, Allah protect everything that you guys do, and then protect your investments as well, inshallah.
Ameen. Barry?
I think my last few words would be like the motto of the this whole thing when the brothers were promoting it was share the profits while we do all the heavy lifting. Don't do that. Teach our kids ourselves to break our back, to roll our sleeves up, work clever, work hard, and you'll be successful. Especially in this society, people are lazy. Mentally, they haven't got it in them what Islam teaches us. And if you've got that mindset from day one and you're willing to work hard, you'll be able to, inshallah, financially support your family, no problem. And be very successful.
Jazakallah khair. Adam?
Yeah, for me is
when I say your name, I feel like I always have to shout as well. My son is called Adam, so I say Adam. Go on, Adam.
So with me, it's don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are legitimate businesses, services online as well. Products and services online, legitimate. So do your due diligence. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And there's even opportunities for you to be able to start a business online as well. But in terms of investments where there's no work involved, be extra cautious. And if you understand anything about business, and like I said, I've got quite a big interest in the stock market, and I analyze companies. There is companies spending, with the capital of billions of pounds can go up and down, right? With some of the best, management companies, the values go up and down, and the prices go up and down. So, like, what chance is there of some low-level, guy who's going to take your money and he's going to guarantee you 50% and 100% when major companies with some of the best leaders aren't able to do that? So be extra cautious with things like that, right? Especially anything over 10-15% returns. That's in terms of investments. But in terms of purchasing services, again, like I said, do due diligence. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and seek out good opportunities if that's your thing.
Guys, don't forget to like this video if you enjoy the content. Subscribe. We never do this enough of promoting our channels. Hopefully that'll help us provide more valuable content in terms of you, and inshallah we'll see you at the next one. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye, guys.